Right, so now we come to actually putting the notes onto the instrument. The method I'm using is being used traditionally in amongst the Chope people from Mozambique, and it's also used on the gamelan instruments in Indonesia and Java and places like that. It's basically entails having the notes supported on the lower string and then tying them on. So the notes will always go up in ascending order, starting with, in this case, with the C. And then they're actually tied on using a thinner cord. So we use the 3 millimeter polyester cord. Now, you must remember that all of this stuff is available from any hardware store. That was part of the way I designed marimbas, is that most of what you need to keep them maintained, to repair them, is available over the counter from most of your hardware stores. So for tying your notes on the side that has the holes, because it has to go a longer distance, you need about about 3.5 times the length of the instrument. So that's 2, 3, and about a half. That'll give you enough to get through the whole length of the instrument. And then what I do in order to make it easier to get it through the holes and everything, once again, exactly the same as the bigger one, is to put a bit of a sharp end. A method that actually will make it simpler is to get the notes on and then start somewhere in the middle. The reason for that is that you end up with less string to pull through. So if we're going to thread this through, what I'm going to do is make it come through from the outside to the inside, sort of matching or echoing the frame. You see what I'm saying? So if I start here, then the string will come from the outside and go through the hole. So I'm going to start at the outside sort of position. I usually put it through the supports. It's not entirely necessary, but it's my kind of rationale for this is that you end up with an extra piece of string at the bottom that if the string starts rubbing, it's going to probably go through the thin support string first, and it'll mean it'll last a bit longer. It's easier to replace the support string than it is to replace the bottom string. Okay, so you see I've started on the outside. So what I'm going to do is thread it through the hole to the inside, and then it'll end up on the outside of this hole again. Okay, so you end up with the string coming over from the outside to the inside. This is just a personal thing. It's just something that makes the instrument look a bit neater. Now I'm going to do the same thing again, but it's coming from the inside to the outside. So we're ending up with the string. You're doing 2 turns and ending up with the string on the outside. Once again, we go through. So because I started in the middle, what I've got now is a short piece of string to work with. If I'd started at the end, I would be having to pull all of that string through. So just starting in the middle means that you use less energy, and it's just easier to manage with a shorter piece of string. So same again, we're going from the inside to the outside. So the way I get it through here usually is to push the support string down a little bit, just compress it against the thing, and then there's usually enough gap to get the 3 mil string through. Pull it through, and off we go again. So just make sure while you're doing this that you're keeping your notes in the same order. It's very easy to do that and then end up with the note in the wrong place. So just always keep mentally checking yourself that you've put the notes in the right place, and you can even tap them and see if you've got the right notes in line, the right notes rising up in the octave. So in this instrument, we've got 2 octaves in C. So there are 15 notes in this instrument. You know, the marimba question is wide open. There's no standard as to how many notes you have per marimba. You know, we have marimbas that we make that have 11 notes, 9 notes, 15 notes, 26 notes. So there's no rule. In this case, we just got 2 octaves on this instrument. And it's really, this instrument is really just to teach the basic principles of how to build a marimba. But these notes as well can be tuned in different ways. So certain people in the workshop have tuned their instruments with F sharps in them because that's what they're used to. The convention for the instruments that came out of Zimbabwe was always to have F sharps included in a C major keyboard. And that just allows you to play in two major keys and the relative minors. So it just makes it slightly more versatile. And so certain members of the last workshop actually built their instruments with F sharps in as well. And this is the point of this instrument, is that it's a starting point. So people can go away, build another one possibly with a different tuning, different capabilities. But in this case, it's two octaves in C. An instrument with sharps and flats would have two keyboards. You'd have a C major keyboard like the white notes on a piano, and then the black notes would be in the second keyboard. That's the Western convention for chromatic instruments. In Africa, there was not really a concept of multiple keys. Instruments were tuned to a local pitch or a local system, and then that's what you stuck with. In certain instruments like the akadindas, the big pentatonic instruments from Central Africa, you get instruments where the spacing, the pitch spacing between the notes is almost equal. So it's not a hard and fast rule. So in African terms, chromatic, the concept of chromaticism doesn't exist. It's more a case of locally what the local tuning is. Pitch, having fixed pitch is a Western concept. It's a Western paradigm, and so we've kind of got used to it, and that's why these instruments are tuned to C major. It just means that if you're going to play with guitars or pianos or whatever, it will be in concert pitch, and so it will play the same. It will play in the same pitches as Western instruments. So now we've got to think about it the other way around. So we're going to go from the inside to the outside. Okay, because I'm coming from the inside here to the outside. So it's exactly the same thing, but we're just doing it the opposite way around. And in between, I'm putting two turns. So 1, 2. And what that does is create a little buffer between each of the notes. So you get a natural spacing, and it stops the notes clonking together. It's one of the advantages of doing it this way, is that you end up with the string being the buffer between the notes as well. Inside to outside, and inside to outside, inside to outside. So there we go. So now tying off, you keep the system the same. So you take this to the outside of the thing, and then basically I'm just putting in a couple of half hitches. But I always do it from the same side. So what you end up with, it's just a needless thing. And also it does help to make sure that it doesn't come loose. But once you've done like 2 or 3 half hitches, then just put a normal overhand granny in there as well, and that we can cut and heat up. So it's very difficult for the string to then pull through and come apart again. Okay, so now you can see the way that that everything runs like in the same direction. It just sort of looks neat. If you do it sort of one way and the other, then it kind of looks a little bit more messy. So this is just a personal thing, really, if you want to make your instrument look really nice. Once again, start in the middle, makes it easier. I'm going to start at this point here. We want it to be on the outside over here, so outside to inside. A couple of half hitches. There. One. We also call this a lark's head knot. Well, I think we can do one with one more that side too. And then we can tie it off just a normal overhand. Push it up tight against the other knots. Same here. Push it up tight against the other knots. So this will do the same thing, outside to inside now, at least inside to outside now. So there, 1, 2, and over this, it's going to the outside. So through there. Now, one thing I've got to say is that fiddling with pieces of string like this takes a bit of practice. And so don't expect you to do it at this sort of speed. When you have to do this quite often, you end up being quite skillful at manipulating pieces of string, but it's not the kind of thing that you can get quickly. It's a bit of a fiddle to learn how to manipulate the string like this. So don't be disheartened if it takes you a lot longer than what I'm taking. Now that one, you see that one's the wrong way around. In fact, I started with that one. That one I made a mistake with. Okay, let's do it again. I went to the inside there instead of the outside. So outside, 1, 2. Outside to inside. Inside to outside. 1, 2, and another one for luck. 3, and then a knot. So to get it neat, you can just snip these off. The notes themselves, before you play them, take a while to sort of loosen up. So there is a kind of pinched sound when you first make an instrument. Just don't panic. Play it for a while, and it will improve hugely. The tension on the strings, once they loose, makes the notes vibrate a whole lot, or allows the notes to vibrate a whole lot easier. So don't be disheartened if it sounds a little bit sort of like it's got a cold at first. It will sort itself out. You've got 2 lengths of bolt. You've got long ones and short ones. So the long ones are obviously for the side that has a spacer in. You're going to need that extra length to get all the way through. And then put the washer on the outside. It's easier if you put the actual wing nuts on the outside, because they'll help you in just tightening the legs up so that they don't move while you're playing. So let's just turn it around. So what you're doing is you're putting the spacer in, long bolts, because it's the base side. Put them through the leg. Washer first, and then wing nut. Okay, same the other side. So spacer in, long bolts. in from the inside to the outside. Come on. Hole is not very clean. Come on, there you go. So through the spacer. Through the leg, washer, and then wing nut. And the same on the soprano side. So putting the short leg on is exactly the same thing, except it doesn't have spaces. So shorter bolts from the inside through the leg. And then washer and wing nut, and the same on the other side. So there's your wing nut and washer. And there's the finished marimba frame and legs. Right. Okay, so the final part of the puzzle is to put the supports in that are going to hold the resonator into the frame. That's the reason for these little supports here. So all we're going to do is to put in the equivalent supports onto the frame on the inside. So basically, if you look at the thickness of the frame, the support needs to go at the bottom of this frame member here. One of the things you can do with the supports is on especially the back ones, on the base side ones, is to chamfer them so that they're easier to push in. Because the way this works is that the sides of the body distort, and then this clips in over the top like that. I'm going to put these in with screws just because we're taking, we need to do this fairly quickly. But you could just do what I did with the box as well and just put them on with a bit of glue and a clamp. I'm just going to drill a couple of holes in here and then screw them into the frame. Just drilling 2 holes, and they don't have to be very accurate unless you want to. Take your time making them accurate, but you're hardly going to see them, so it's not a big deal, and you can use your eye for most things here. So as I said, I'm going to use a little bit of glue, but not a lot, because you don't want to squeeze out on the top. So I'm just going to lightly put a little bit of glue there. Give it a bit of a rub when you put it together, and then put the screws in. Just make sure it stays in the same place while you're doing it. So once again, just between your 2 marks that you made. Okay, those 2 supports are there, now the 2 top ones. And you can stick it right up in the corner. It's not a big deal there. Okay. Okay, there we go. So now what we've got is we slide that into there like that. There's support there, and then push the sides of the boxes together and it clips in. So when you turn it over, the box is now hanging on those clips over here.